Great. Well, welcome to Trading Card Therapy, episode number 24. We have a special guest this week, our very own beloved Jeremy Lee from our hobby. Jeremy does so many different things. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to say collectible or avid hockey collector. So we're going to let Jeremy introduce himself to our Trading Card Therapy listeners. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, Leighton. I'm a Trading Card Therapy listener, so it's an honor to be on this side with you, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, my name's Jeremy Lee. I host Sports Cards Live on YouTube every Saturday night, except this Saturday is my wife's birthday. I'm taking it off. You know, you gotta take care of the wife, right? And I also host Collectable Live on Sundays on the Collectable TV YouTube channel. I'm a lifelong hobbyist of over 40 years now, just like yourself, Leighton.
Well, it's pretty amazing where the hobby is at these days. And of course, we really appreciate you joining us. I was recently on your program, and because of that, I started listening a little bit more to some of your legacy shows. And I really like what Collectable is doing with their whole platform, right? They could very easily just be narrow focused. Hey, we have these assets, they're for sale. Let's not worry about producing content around them. And we'll just offer people the ability to buy shares of it. We'll educate them. And they do so much more than that, of course, with you being instrumental in that. How have you found being part of their organization, and what do you like best about it?
Well, I really like the crew there. It's a great group of men and women. You know, they also organized and partnered up for the Mint Collective, which was a great just a great event overall. But what I like about Collectable is that they really they walk the walk. I had Ezra Levine, their CEO, on my show on Sports Cards Live about it's almost a year and a half ago now, when they just launched, and he said to me, we really want to focus on content. We want to focus on education and be a bit of a hub for that. And some time went by and they followed through. They are content kings as far as I'm concerned. They've brought on myself to host a show for them. They have partnerships with other content creators. I think they just do a really great job of trying to grow the hobby organically. And at the same time, obviously they're a business and they have their fractional offerings on a weekly basis. But I love what they're doing, and it's a great group of people there that care about the hobby. So I couldn't be happier to be aligned with them.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm very excited, to be part of the Collectable family. And of course, the Mint Collective was a wonderful event to attend in person.
The Mint Collective was excellent in person. You and I had the chance to sit on a panel together, which was a ton of fun. I think it kind of kicked off the event on the Friday night. So yeah, they're doing a really good job. Anyone who didn't go to the Mint Collective, I would think you might have had a little bit of remorse not going, because the stories coming out of it were just amazing. And I think it's going to become a must-attend event for people who want to understand what the hobby is, how the hobby's maturing, how it's evolving, from just being opening packs with gum to being an alternative asset vehicle for people. There's a lot of Leighton, as well as anybody, there's a lot of debate between, is the hobby for collectors or investors, and I think it can be for both. So, and I'm a collector by nature from birth, but you become an investor by consequence if you've been in the hobby that long and you have a collection. So yeah, I love what they're doing overall, Collectable.
So with fractional shares, there's got to be no less than 177 auction houses. There's 3.2 million items on eBay. Check out My Cards has 18 million items they're storing. And obviously, folks, I'm guessing at the numbers, but I think Jeremy appreciates where I'm coming from. Yeah. How do you deal with being overwhelmed in the hobby? And that could mean as a collector. That could mean as someone who does it for a living, like you and I, trying to simply stay on top of, wait, what did that jersey go for the other day? Or is there an event? I mean, my buddy Mark Zabel from Bleecker, I was so upset. I was in the city on Tuesday and we were texting about something back and forth. He texted me the next morning. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was at Bleecker trading late last night. We had an event. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. Like, I feel like for me, and then I'm gonna ask for your feedback. Auctionreport.com is a wonderful place. My buddy Ryan Friedman owns it. Shout out to him. Where I still go to monitor the auction houses and when the auctions conclude. The problem is the business is not like it was even 5 years ago. So it's not that I'm only concerned with auction houses and their ending their consignment deadlines and so on and so forth. But now I care about events. I care about card shows. I care about Jeremy Lee being on Trading Card Therapy. So how do you deal with being so overwhelmed the way that I feel these days?
That's a great question, Leighton. It's one that I don't think I've ever been asked or asked the question on my shows. It's a great one, because you're right. There is so much stimulus coming at us from all directions when you're immersed in the hobby like we are, and you have social media accounts. If you are scrolling through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, consuming content on YouTube, listening to podcasts, that's where I get most of my information on what is going on from an auction perspective. Emails. I get emails from all the auction houses. It feels like daily, if not more. So we're inundated with this information, and to not get overwhelmed, it's a great question. But I'm fully immersed in the hobby, Leighton. Like it takes up, takes up probably 80% of my waking hours. So I like it. I like being inundated with the information, but I will say that there are points in time once in a while where it does get a little tedious, a little tiresome. And for me, how I deal with that, I will I'll go back to the cards. I'll open up my collection, I'll pull out a box, and I'll just look at my cards. And that kind of gets me back, gets me grounded again. There's so much unproductive content out there as well. And when I'm noticing or consuming too much of that, because you just scroll by it and you can't help but read the headlines, again, I'll go to my cards, and they will help me kind of recenter and realize that, the hobby it's more than just what you're consuming out there in terms of the content. It really comes back to, what do you collect? What do you love? The cards, my car, I call, they're like my babies. It's my passion. It's, I have 2 actual kids, but my cards are my other kids. And, when you love them as much as passionate collectors like us do, you can sort of see past some of the overwhelming content that's out there. But in terms of staying on top of things, like for me, I use eBay, I use ComC regularly, I use PWCC, Collectable's great, although I'm in Canada, so even though I do a show for them, I'm precluded from investing on their platform because I don't have a social security number.
Sure.
So, but I think that's a great question, Leighton. I think that's kind of where I'm at on it.
I think that you made some really excellent points, Jeremy. I always try to recenter when I'm getting hobby burnout, and I feel like, and this is just off the cuff, but these are 3 things I do. One of them is I definitely get back to the cards the way you're suggesting, okay? Because we're card nerds. Yeah. Number 2 is I get back to the people. And in some cases, it's my constituency, right? It's peers, it's fellow dealers, auction houses, owners, and things of that nature. But then also it's texting my hobby buddies that I've met through Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, or just being at the Mint. And so number 3, and it's similar to what you were talking about with content, but for me, because I buy so much, and I now realize through our move, I have way too much also, is, the me of 3 years ago, let's just say there was 11 auctions at the same time, I would never, ever let an auction go where I wouldn't look and at least peruse what the offerings were. The problem is, I've realized, for me, time is oh so precious. You mentioned you have 2 kids. I have 1, and of course I have all the cards. But I don't have extra time. In fact, I have a time deficit. And so what I do when I have a time deficit in the hobby is, and I know the auction houses will not want to hear this, but it's the truth, I actually have stopped looking at auctions when I have too much going on. Because the problem is, I don't know how to look at an auction for 2 minutes. It's not in my DNA. Even if it's just on a personal level, Jeremy, I'm like, wait a minute, let me look up Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, and photograph and see what I find. I can tell you right now, that's an hour and a half minimum. So if there's multiple auctions in a week, I don't have extra time. So the last point I wanted to make is that I've decided it's okay to not look at an auction and to have someone tell me afterwards to break my heart, Late, did you just see what I got out of Heritage? I'm like, no, don't tell me. It's another Jackie Robinson, such and such, isn't it? And of course it is, because I would have been bidding on it if I was in there, and they know they want to rub it in a little bit, But that is something I truly do. And even though it hurts a little, in the long run, I think I'll be better off. I was curious what you think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great strategy. You have to put up some boundaries, just like you do in your normal life relationships. You have to put up some boundaries with your relationship with the hobby. And in order to allow yourself to not let your relationship with your family go in any poor direction. So I think it's a great strategy. And there are so many auction houses now. There are so many, and I'm talking, the traditional auction houses. Now you also have all the other platforms that we can purchase on. The PWCC's new platform, ComC, et cetera, MySlabs, all these breakers yourself. I mean, there's so many different options of where to purchase. I really like what you said, though. I want to step back. You talked about, you also will call up your hobby buddies and that. And that's the other thing, is that there's so many people in this hobby. And, I've been so fortunate to meet so many people over the last couple of years by virtue of starting my Sports Cards Live show, that people come out of the woodwork, and you make all these new friends. And then you also make a couple of, there's some people that may not like you as much as well. But when you focus in, you hone in on that core group of hobby friends that you have, and I'm fortunate to have, like, some of my best friends in my life are through the hobby, right? You know what that's like. And because you have this bond, you have this common interest, you understand each other. We're cardboard nerds. We understand it. So, I've got a couple buddies that when I need advice on a card price, or when I just want to, even vent a little bit or get feedback on things, it's great to have those friends to lean on. So I'm sorry to go back in time there on that little tangent, but yes, I think the other thing to consider is education, and really, informing yourself on what's out there. There are opportunities, like you said. You don't want to miss that Jackie Robinson on Heritage if you decide not to watch the Heritage auction one week. So you just have to balance that out and decide, where are you going to spend your time? And if something gets by, it gets by. One thing I love to say, Leighton, is that there's always going to be more cards. You might miss one. There are always more cards to buy, both as a collector, an investor, and a business.
Yeah, and this is obviously personal, but I found, and I run a few different businesses in the space. And of course, I'm a collector as well. But I found that when I'm sitting with my son and we're trying to eat dinner, or we're out on the trampoline, and if I need to be thinking about an auction ending that night, and that's attracting from me being present, I realize it's too much, at least for that day. So I'm willing to, lose out on a couple items that normally maybe I wouldn't have, so that I can maintain my sanity and be happy in my life.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I'm not quite as sophisticated as you yet. I mean, I have 2 young kids, and I'm on my phone all the time. Whatever it is, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, eBay, ComC, various Clubhouse, another one. Yeah, and it's, yeah, you've really got to be careful and balance it my kids are young, they're impressionable still. So I need to focus more on putting the phone down, putting the hobby aside, and giving more attention to the kids. I sound terrible right now. I think I'm a good father and all that, but I could probably be better.
Well, I mean, listen, Jeremy, I think that this is what makes good content, right? Is authenticity. So, I knew from meeting you in person for the first time at the Mint that we were going to end up probably having a bunch of different shows or things that we would do together, because we just have that same vibe. So no, I don't think any less. I think, in fact, I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I opened up Jeremy's eyes to, like, we're in the same boat. I was out last night. It was a beautiful night, and I really tried hard to not look at my phone at all during dinner. I looked a couple times. I'm like, I just, like, what if I didn't have it? Then I just wouldn't look.
Yeah.
So, trying to balance, of course. Let's switch gears for a minute while we still have a few minutes. Certainly, there was a very big pull in the breaking world. So unless you've been sleeping under a rock or you don't pay attention to breaking, there was a really big pull out of the Flawless Basketball, the LeBron James Logo Man card. One of one was pulled by a big breaker. And the supposed estimated value of this card is, a few $1 million. And I feel like I'm setting you up, so I don't want to say too much more. Give us your thoughts on the card itself.
Sure. So listen, I mean, the card is pretty cool in concept. You've got three LeBron James logo men, all from three different teams he played for. I like the fact that it chronicles his career in that manner. Aesthetically and design wise, it's underwhelming for me. I don't love the looks of it. I've seen much nicer logo men cards in the past. So, but I'm also somebody who believes that some cards are important regardless of what they look like. There are some rookie cards. I'm a Hall of Fame rookie collector, all sports, back to the beginning of time. Not every player's rookie card is absolutely stunning. I mean, any player, take, for example, the Pete Rose rookie, 63 tops. I personally think it's awesome, but a lot of people don't love the looks of it, but it's still a very important card. So this triple logo, man, I think it's a very important card, especially the way it's had so much publicity. There's that added sort of hype value to it. But again, to look at it, it's not that beautiful. And but just because it's not that beautiful doesn't mean it's not going to be all that valuable.
I've been thinking about this overnight, Jeremy. You made some great points. And even though I personally don't love the card, and I'll give my 2 cents in a second, what I've recognized is you cannot dispute its importance. Notice how I didn't say value. But when it potentially threw out a lure, and I'm not much of a fisherman, but we got a bite from a gentleman by the name of Drake, who has 100 million followers and is known worldwide by people way beyond the hobby. I didn't think about that the first couple times I talked about this card on a show. So this is the first time. I'm not sticking up for the card because I don't like it. I don't think it's aesthetically, it's not for me. The value of it, I mean, you can buy 3 LeBron James jerseys from the 3 teams and easily have a lot of leftover change to go to McDonald's and probably even Capitol Grill and some other wonderful establishments. But where I have changed my stance is that just because I don't like it or it's not for me, it doesn't mean it's not important. And when you talk about someone like Drake, I always believe this in life. If someone like Drake is paying attention, there's probably 1 or 2 other people either at his level or just below that haven't made their intention public, but it caught their eye because the lure was out in the water. And even though they didn't pull the LeBron 1 of 1, they were aware of it and they may be starting to dabble and nibble in our hobby.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. It's important for a few reasons. Number one, the memorabilia contained within it. Number two, LeBron James is an all-time great. Number three, I mean, and there's other ones, but number three is what you just said. Drake is going to he's already brought a lot of attention to the hobby. He's going to bring more attention to the hobby if he manages to purchase this card. Maybe he already has, and we don't know. I don't know how the owners of that card are going to end up disposing of it eventually. You have to think that they will. But you're right. Drake brings a lot of attention to the hobby. And I wonder, though, and here's a question back to you, Leighton. I have to think that Drake's friends likely are quite wealthy. And is he going to attract mainstream collectors who are this average sort of average wealth and income? And or is he going to attract other celebrities, wealthy celebrities to the hobby such that they're only going to pursue the finest of the finest cards, the 1 of 1s? And is that going to cause more of a divide between high end and low end if he does bring in some more, wealthy, influential people? I don't know. I'm speculating here. But regardless of what happens, we can't deny the fact that that he was breaking cases of flawless on various people's Instagram lives looking for this 1 card, probably spent well over $1 million doing that. And that was very exciting for all of us in the hobby because we like the fact that that one of the world's top influencers and celebrities is, as you said, he's taken a bite out of the hobby. He's joining the hobby, and that's pretty cool that he's doing that. So you're right. It's an important card, no matter if we like the looks of it or not.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point, Jeremy. He is going to probably be influential within his center circle, right? His inner circle, just like you would be to your people and I would be to my people. His people just happen to make probably a lot more than my people and your people make. But you cannot dispute having that many followers on Instagram and his worldwide influence. So how many, call it just regular people, will he get to maybe lift that curtain up on the hobby and say, wow, I either have never been involved or I haven't bought a pack of cards since I was 9 and that gum was disgusting, but I didn't even know they don't make gum anymore. And so I just think that it's not as straightforward as the card was pulled. I don't like it. It's worth a lot. I think it's a terrible deal. I'd rather own other stuff. I feel like that's where my mind was when it first got pulled, and it's been evolving ever since.
Yeah. And I mean, you ask how many mainstream people will he attract to the hobby? If he has 100 million followers on various social media platforms. I mean, what micro percentage of that does he need to attract to make a difference or to help grow the hobby? I mean, 100 million people is a lot of people. If he can bring in 1,000 of those people by reminding them that the hobby exists, by reminding them of what you mentioned, they might have broken packs in the 80s, get them in the hobby. And of those people, some are going to come in with dollar signs in their eyes and some are going to come in to collect. The big boom of 2020, 2021 in our hobby brought so many new people in with dollar signs in their eyes, but some of those people are going to stick it out for the long term because they have the collector gene like you and I do. So I'm sure Drake will have a similar influence on that. And many people that are aware of what he's doing are going to come into the hobby and stay. Most won't, but some will, and that's great for the hobby.
Agreed. So I have a couple more things I wanted to cover. The first one being a really fun one. We are in the process of moving our offices to a new 3,000 square foot facility in Millburn, New Jersey. And as part of that facility, we're going to have a new retail store. So we're very excited about that. So in order to do this, Jeremy, we have an incredible amount of packing to do. We're taking things down from the walls. Some of it's cool, some of it not so cool. Look for an Instagram post from me later today about a very interesting Pistol Pete Maravich piece that we've recently taken down from the walls, a little teaser. But I don't know if you remember these as a kid. Do you remember these little mini football helmets?
Yeah, the baseball ones too, yeah.
Yeah, I just found my collection of these. So my dad and my mom a few years ago called me up one morning and effectively said, we want your stuff out of the house. Like whatever is left over from your childhood, like you don't need to keep it here. Fair point. So I have an office. They bring up a bunch of stuff and a few trips. And I'm just out in the warehouse today. I mean, these got to be 25 years old. So I chose the Jets and the Lions because I'm a sad Jet fan and my friend Monty's a sad Lion fan. But I believe at one point these had pencil sharpeners in them. And you can see where it was removed. At another point, I think you could have bought these in like these little plastic, gumball machine type things. You put in a quarter and you twist it. So I wanted to ask you, from 10, 20, 25 years ago, it doesn't have to be a card. What did you collect? It doesn't even have to be sports. Was it Pogs? Was it something else different? What comes to mind for nostalgia's sake from 10, 20, 25 years ago that you collected?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, those little mini helmets, listen, I'm from and I live in Canada, but I have family in Minnesota, and I went to a Twins game probably I'm like mid 80s, and my aunt bought me a bag that had all the MLB mini helmets in it, and I don't have those anymore, but that's what that reminds me of.
Totally.
I wish I still had that because it's nostalgic to that trip and all that. But you know what I do collect? You can see it right behind me on that shelf right there. That's a bunch of like old. I have the original Game Boy there. I have the original Sony Walkman, the original Sony Watchman. I have a couple of my old iPhones, some other handheld Mattel electronic games, a Merlin.
Do you have a Speak and Spell?
What's that?
Speak and Spell. Do you remember that?
I don't have a Speak and Spell, but I mean, a Simon would be cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Remember that was technology in the 80s when I was growing up, and yeah, you can see it. It's all right on this shelf is where I have a bunch of that. So I still have it on display because I look at it and it makes me feel like there's no problems in the world, and that's I think what brings us back to sports cards and the nostalgia. And I mean, I grew up opening packs of cards in the 80s, eating the gum, putting sets together, and it's that innocence that before I was an adult, I had no responsibility, just make sure I, got to and from school. That that's why we collect, I think, a lot of stuff. So I worked at a Hard Rock Cafe in Sydney, Australia in 1990-91, right out of high school. And so I collect Hard Rock Cafe pins, the guitar pins and all that. And I have a nice little collection of those as well.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with me, Jeremy. I wanted to show you this last card and last topic. You have no idea I'm about to show it off. It's a great card, and you have no idea what I'm about to propose. But this is the highlight of our 250 graded card hit random that is currently live on Vintage Breaks, but we're down to 15 spots. So for those of you who do not understand what I just said or how it works, if you buy a spot in this 250 card graded hit random on our website at vintagebreaks.com, and you have one of those 250 spots, after it sells out, we're going to do a random drawing live on our show. And one person for the $525 entry fee is going to walk away with this 1933 Gaudi yellow, the low number version, Babe Ruth, PSA 4.5. And the reason I'm bringing it up to you, not so that you buy a spot in it, Jeremy, but I really found the Collectable family and the Mint Collective in particular to be such a wonderful event. And so why don't you go back to David and your team? I just saw David recently in the city. And if you and Collectable would like to, in conjunction with Vintage Breaks, give out a free spot in this break to someone from the Collectable community, that's one of the ways that Vintage Breaks and us here at Just Collect can show that the hobby can be friends. We can do cross promotions, and you and the team were such gracious hosts of the event. I thought this would be a nice way to give back to the Collectable community and obviously bring some excitement. Maybe someone from the Collectable community will end up hitting the Babe Ruth.
Yeah, that's super generous of you on behalf of myself and Collectable. I'm not an employee of Collectable, but I'm aligned with them, and they're a great group of guys and gals over there. So yeah, that's super generous, and I think that's exciting. And I'll also mention it on my show, Sports Cards Live, when as long as until you're ready to actually do the random and award the various cards. What a great card. That card pops too, by the way.
Oh, it's beautiful. This is from a fresh collection. So this is not just any old 4.5. This has got vivid color that you would probably only usually see on a 7 or 8, but this comes from a collection that had not seen the light of day since 1933 before it found us.
Like that yellow is even, and StreamYard video is not always the best.
No, I can see it. It looks great.
It looks amazing. That yellow is stunning. What a gorgeous card. Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, on that note, Jeremy, I wanted to sincerely thank you for joining us today. It was a blast.
Thanks for having me, Leighton. This is great. I always enjoy hanging out with you, so it's been a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Take care. Thank you.